Cut it again, Vanessa Whitmore shouted over the scream of the grinder. Orange sparks sprayed across the wet gravel as the steel chain bucked against the lake gate. The sound ripped through the dark like a saw blade chewing bone. Burned metal mixed with pine, mud, and the cold mineral smell rising off the water. It was 4:13 in the morning. I stood barefoot in my kitchen, one hand wrapped around a mug I had forgotten to drink from, the other holding my phone. On the screen, Vanessa leaned into the grinder with both hands. Her white jacket snapped in the wind. Behind her, headlights crawled between the trees. Not neighbors this time. A flatbed truck carried lumber, concrete forms, and a compact excavator. The eighth trip was different. I zoomed in. Vanessa's face glowed blue beneath the security light. She looked annoyed, not nervous. Like cutting through my gate before sunrise was another item on her schedule. One of the workers pointed at the warning sign bolted to the post. Authorized access only. Water control and monitoring corridor. Vanessa ripped it down. The metal sign struck the ground with a sharp clang. HOA authorization overrides this, she said. Her voice came through the gate microphone clean enough to make my pulse slow. That was the moment I stopped reaching for my boots. 7 times, I had driven down that gravel road and found a lock split open. 7 times, I had picked up pieces of chain while Vanessa claimed the lake belonged to the community. 7 police reports. 7 repair receipts. 7 broken locks lined up on the workbench in my father's old shed. I had kept every one. The first still carried blue paint from her bolt cutters. The fourth had a bent shackle from a tow chain. The 7th was wrapped in an evidence bag beside a certified letter she had signed 3 days earlier. She knew the gate was private. She knew she had no permission. And now she was bringing heavy equipment through it. The grinder gave one final metallic shriek. The chain dropped. Vanessa kicked it aside with the toe of her boot and waved the truck forward. Its tires crushed the fallen warning sign. Gravel snapped under the weight. The excavator's diesel engine coughed awake, sending a low vibration through the ground and up the kitchen window. I could feel it in the glass. My name is Ethan Cole. I maintain the lake, the dam road, and the old monitoring station my father guarded for 30 years. Most people in Silver Pines thought I was just the quiet man in the cedar house who kept their boats off private water. Vanessa thought that too. What she didn't know was that 3 people were watching the same camera feed from a black SUV parked beyond the north tree line. She also didn't know why I had replaced the ordinary lock with a numbered seal, why the old map was spread across my kitchen table, or why a federal envelope sat open beside my cold coffee. On screen, the excavator crossed the gate. I heard a car door close somewhere in the darkness. Vanessa smiled. What would you have done next? 8 months earlier, the lake still looked untouched. Morning fog hovered over the water in thin white sheets. Pine needles stuck to my boots as I walked the gravel access road with a toolbox in one hand and my father's old ring of keys in the other. The gate groaned when I unlocked it, the hinges dry from winter. Somewhere beyond the reeds, a pump motor clicked twice, then settled into its familiar hum. That sound had been part of my childhood. So had the smell of wet cedar, algae, and machine oil. I had returned to the house after my father died, expecting repairs, paperwork, and silence. Instead, 3 days after I arrived, I found tire tracks pressed deep into the mud beside the lake. Fresh tracks. SUV tires. Wide tread. They crossed the private access road, curved around the maintenance shed, and stopped near the south shoreline where a bright red stake had been hammered into the ground. A ribbon fluttered from it. Silver Pines lakefront amenity expansion. I stared at the words until the wind snapped the plastic hard enough to sound like a tiny flag. Then I heard engines. 2 white golf carts rolled through the open gate, followed by a pearl-white Lexus SUV. The lead cart carried 6 people in business clothes. One held a camera. Another carried rolled blueprints. The Lexus stopped close enough to spray mud across my work pants. Vanessa Whitmore stepped out wearing cream slacks, polished boots, and a navy jacket embroidered with the Silver Pines HOA crest. Her blonde hair did not move in the wind. Neither did her smile. "You must be Ethan," she said. Her voice was smooth and practiced, the kind built for open houses and board meetings. "I must be." She glanced past me at the lake. "We're conducting final site preparation." "For what?" She lifted one hand toward the shoreline like she was unveiling a resort. "Our private lake access project. Dock improvements, picnic areas, controlled boating." It's been approved. By whom? The board. I looked at the blueprints under her arm. The board doesn't own this road. Her smile tightened. The community has used this lake for years. Walking near something doesn't make it yours. The camera operator stopped filming. Vanessa stepped closer. Her perfume cut through the smell of damp soil. You're new here, she said quietly. You may not understand how long-standing access works. I pulled the county parcel map from my toolbox. The access road, gate, shoreline, and maintenance corridor were all recorded under the Cole Family Trust. Vanessa barely looked at it. She handed me a glossy brochure instead. On the cover was an aerial photograph of my lake beneath the words, Silver Pines, Private Waterfront Living. At the bottom, in smaller print, it promised every homeowner full recreational lake privileges. The document listed a grand opening date, June 15th, 26 days away. I flipped to the final page. The approval signature belonged to Vanessa. The parcel identification number beneath it was wrong by 1 digit. Not a typo. It matched an abandoned drainage lot 2 miles east. I looked up. You filed this under the wrong property. Vanessa's eyes cooled. The board's attorney reviewed everything. Then he reviewed a different lake. One of the men beside her folded the blueprints. Vanessa leaned close enough that only I could hear her. Open that gate by June 15th, Ethan, or we'll remove it ourselves. She turned, climbed into her Lexus, and drove away. I watched mud drip from the red survey stake. Then I locked the gate and made my first call. The first call went to the county recorder. The second went to a surveyor I trusted. By noon, I had the parcel maps spread across my father's workbench beneath the yellow light of an old shop lamp. Rain tapped the metal roof. The room smelled of cedar dust, grease, and the cold iron scent of tools that had not moved since his funeral. I did not need Vanessa's brochure to tell me where the boundary ran. I checked the deed bearings against the brass survey pins with a transit, a laser rangefinder, and a fiberglass tape. The west pin sat under 6 inches of moss. The southern marker was buried beside the drainage culvert, exactly where the 1978 field notes said it would be. My measurements closed within 2 inches. Her map did not. I walked the access road slowly, recording elevations, tire impressions, and every fresh stake. The red flags followed the shoreline, then crossed the maintenance corridor and continued toward the dam embankment. Whoever placed them had not followed a recreational easement. They had marked a construction footprint. Near the reeds, I knelt and pressed 2 fingers into a dark patch of soil. It smelled of diesel and fresh clay. A track machine had already tested the ground, probably before I returned. The marks were faint, but I had spent years inspecting drainage systems and flood control sites. Heavy equipment tells you what it did. The tread depth shows its weight. The turn scars show its direction. The broken grass shows whether it came once or kept returning. This machine had entered at least 3 times. I followed the tracks to the old monitoring shed. Its padlock was scratched, not cut, worked on. Thin silver marks circled the keyway, and a sliver of broken metal glinted inside. Someone had tried to pick it, then stopped. My father had installed that lock when I was 16. I remembered holding the flashlight while he tightened the hasp, his knuckles black with grease. Water always leaves a record, he told me. So do people. Back then, I thought he meant mud. Inside the shed, gauges clicked behind dusty glass. A narrow pipe disappeared through the concrete floor. On the wall hung an old photograph of my father and grandfather beside the unfinished spillway, both sunburned, both holding shovels. Below it was a steel key cabinet. One hook was empty. The missing key was stamped N4. I searched the desk drawers and found my father's maintenance ledger wrapped in wax cloth. Most pages listed ordinary things: valve checks, rainfall totals, erosion repairs. Then, near the back, several pages had been removed with a blade. The cut was clean, recent. A folded county photocopy lay underneath. Someone had circled the lake, the dam road, and the monitoring shed in red ink. In the margin, beside Vanessa's initials, was a handwritten question: original authorization file? I heard gravel crunch outside. A black pickup rolled past the shed, too slowly for a wrong turn. The driver wore a Silver Pines maintenance shirt. He looked directly at the open door, lifted a phone, and took a picture. Then he accelerated toward the gate. I stepped outside and watched dust rise behind him. Vanessa was not merely claiming access. She was searching for the same missing record my father had hidden. By Monday morning, My phone would not stop vibrating. First came the HOA violation notices, then the county code complaints, then a local Facebook post with my photograph beneath the words "Lake access blocked by out-of town air." I had lived there as a child, but facts did not spread as quickly as anger. By noon, strangers were calling the house. One woman accused me of stealing water from families. A man left a voicemail saying people like me ruined communities. Someone posted my gate address beneath a photograph of Vanessa standing beside 3 children in life jackets. She had framed herself as their protector. I stood at the kitchen counter opening certified envelopes while the refrigerator hummed behind me. One notice demanded removal of an unauthorized obstruction. Another threatened daily penalties of $500. A third claimed my maintenance shed violated shoreline appearance rules. The HOA had no authority over my parcel. That did not stop their printer. Then my bank called. A loan officer explained that an anonymous complaint had raised questions about access liability and unpermitted infrastructure. Until the title issue was reviewed, the credit line I needed for dam repairs would be frozen. Outside, rainwater slid down the windows in gray sheets. The spillway inspection was 6 weeks away. Without those funds, I could not replace the cracked drainage pipe before summer storms. Vanessa arrived that afternoon in her Lexus. She stepped onto my porch carrying a leather folder and wearing the same calm smile she used in her advertisements. "This has become unpleasant," she said. "You made it unpleasant." I made it visible. She opened the folder on my porch rail. Inside was a purchase agreement for the shoreline road, the gate, and 12 acres around the lake. The number looked generous until I saw the conditions. Immediate access. Waiver of all claims. Transfer before June 15th. You sell the corridor, she said, and the complaints disappear. The bank gets reassurance. You keep the house. And you get the lake. The community gets certainty. Her voice softened. You should consider what uncertainty costs. I closed the folder and handed it back. No. Her smile stayed in place, but her fingers tightened around the leather. Then the board will proceed without your cooperation. She drove away slowly, tires whispering across wet gravel. That night, I mounted 2 trail cameras near the maintenance shed and aimed a third toward the gate. I told no one except Laura. At 1:37 a.m., one camera sent an alert. The image was grainy, washed green by infrared. A black pickup sat beneath the pines with its lights off. 2 men in silver pines jackets moved along the shed wall. One carried bolt cutters. The other carried a shovel and a rolled sheet of paper. I watched from the dark kitchen as they worked. The microphone caught metal scraping, low voices, and the wet thud of soil landing on plastic. Whitmore said it's behind the north marker, one man whispered. Find the box and we're done. The second man unfolded the paper. Even through the static, I recognized the red circle around the monitoring shed. Then he said something Vanessa had never admitted publicly. The original authorization has the federal seal. My hand tightened around the phone. Outside, the shovel struck something hollow beneath the ground. The men froze. One of them dropped to his knees and scraped mud away from a rusted metal tube. The other reached for the shed lock. I triggered the floodlight from my phone. White light slammed across the wall. Both men looked directly into the camera. One dropped the shovel. The other stumbled over the plastic sheet, and something small flashed in the mud beside the open hole. Their truck tore away before Deputy Mercer reached the gate. By sunrise, Vanessa was already calling the footage a staged misunderstanding. The emergency county hearing lasted 19 minutes. That was all Vanessa needed to win temporary pedestrian access, while the ownership dispute moved toward civil court. The chamber smelled of old carpet, burnt coffee, and rain-soaked coats. Fluorescent lights buzzed above 3 commissioners while I sat beside Laura with my father's ledger sealed in a plastic sleeve between us. Vanessa stood at the podium in a charcoal suit, one hand resting on a thick binder marked Community Access Agreement. She spoke calmly. She had maps. She had affidavits. She had photographs of families near the water and a notarized document claiming Silver Pines had maintained uninterrupted access to the lake corridor for 32 years. The signature at the bottom was supposed to be my father's. It looked close enough from 10 feet away. The commissioners accepted it. My attorney objected, but the county council called the dispute fact-intensive and recommended a 14-day emergency order allowing pedestrian access only while the ownership claim was reviewed. Temporary. That word hit harder than the gavel. The order required me to leave the pedestrian gate open during daylight hours. It prohibited vehicles and construction equipment, suspended my request for immediate trespass enforcement, and warned that interference could result in fines. Vanessa turned before leaving the room. Her smile was small, controlled. A photographer caught it anyway. By evening, the image was online beneath the headline HOA wins lake access dispute. Cars began arriving the next morning. Kayaks scraped across gravel. Children ran beside the maintenance road. Someone parked on the drainage shoulder and crushed a marker flag. I spent 6 hours moving people away from the spillway while being told I had lost. At sunset, I found beer cans beside the gauge housing. The air smelled of sunscreen, gasoline, and churned mud. Laura stood near the gate reading the notarized agreement again. She forged Walter's signature, I said. Maybe. She held the page against the fading light. But that isn't what bothers me. Laura worked in county records before opening her own title research office. She did not study signatures first. She studied filing marks, paper stock, margin codes, and the tiny habits clerks left behind. She pointed to the instrument number. The prefix is wrong. I looked closer. The first 2 characters read N4. The same code stamped on the missing key from my father's cabinet. Laura opened the photograph I had taken inside the monitoring shed. Behind my grandfather, half hidden by his shovel, was a narrow steel door built into the concrete foundation. Neither of us had noticed it. We returned after dark. The lake slapped softly against the rocks as I cleared vines from the north wall of the shed. Rust flaked beneath my gloves. Behind a warped metal panel, I found a lock packed with dirt. The N for key had been missing. Beside the unfinished hole, I found the rusted metal tube the men had uncovered before they fled. Its cap had split when the shovel struck it. Inside, wrapped in oil-dark cloth, was a small brass key stamped N4. It turned. The steel door opened with a deep scrape, releasing air that smelled of wet stone, machine oil, and paper sealed too long. Concrete steps descended beneath the shed. At the bottom was a forgotten control room. Old relays lined one wall. Filing cabinets stood beneath corroded pipes. Water ticked somewhere in the darkness. Laura used the photograph to identify the correct cabinet. Drawer N4. Inside, wrapped in wax cloth, was the original authorization file. The federal seal was pressed into the first page. The agreement granted my family ownership of the lake, dam road, and maintenance corridor. It also recorded a federal access easement for the monitoring station. Silver Pines received no recreational rights. None. The document Vanessa presented at the hearing cited the same authorization number, but the final digit had been altered. She had built her victory on a file that proved she owned nothing. Daniel arrived 10 minutes later carrying gloves, evidence bags, and instructions not to touch another drawer. I reached for my phone. "We send this tonight." He stopped my hand. "No," I stared at him. "Why?" "Because Vanessa thinks she won," he said. "Let her act like it. Because every false step she takes now becomes evidence," our attorney said. His name was Daniel Price, and he spoke quietly enough that the old control room seemed to lean toward him. Water ticked inside the pipes. A relay clicked once behind us. "If we expose the file tonight," he continued, "she changes course. She blames a clerk, withdraws the permit, and calls it confusion. Let her keep moving." I looked at the federal seal beneath Laura's flashlight. "So we do nothing? We document everything." That became the plan. The next morning, I hired a licensed survey crew. They set brass markers along the maintenance corridor while rain hissed against their orange jackets. I photographed each coordinate, each disturbed stake, and every tire track crossing the boundary. Laura scanned the original authorization at high resolution. Daniel sent certified copies to a federal records specialist without notifying the HOA. I installed new cameras above the gate, near the spillway, and inside the monitoring shed. Every clip uploaded to 2 separate servers. We built a timeline. Dates, invoices, police reports, 7 damaged locks, each sealed and photographed where I had stored it. Every page received a number. Every digital file was verified so no one could later claim it had been altered. The printer in Daniel's office ran so long the room smelled of hot toner. Vanessa kept helping us. She signed a sworn permit application stating Silver Pines owned the lake corridor outright. She sent the same claim to the county building department, the HOA's insurer, my bank, and the fire marshal. Her letter said there were no disputed boundaries. Her email said no federally owned monitoring equipment or recorded federal access easement existed on the property. Both statements were false. The more places she sent them, the fewer exits she left herself. 3 days later, a man named Howard Bell called from a prepaid phone. He had served as HOA treasurer for 6 years. We met behind a closed hardware store after sunset. Rainwater dripped from the loading dock roof. Howard kept checking the empty street before handing me a flash drive wrapped in a sandwich bag. She knows, he said. Knows what? That the access claim is fake. The drive contained board emails, contractor bids, insurance forms, and messages between Vanessa and the HOA attorney. One message stopped me. Find the original file before Cole does. Without it, we can control the narrative. Another was worse. Use the drainage parcel number. County staff won't check until after opening. Howard also gave us a contract for the new dock. Vanessa had promised the developer full lake access and scheduled a public ribbon cutting for June 15th. 400 invitations had gone out. Local reporters were expected. So were buyers, county officials, and the bank representative reviewing my frozen credit line. Vanessa believed the hearing had broken me. She drove past my house twice that week, slowing near the open gate. On Friday, she sent a final message. Thank you for finally cooperating. I did not answer. Instead, Daniel arranged for the surveyor, the records specialist, Howard, and 2 federal investigators to attend separately. Agent Donovan's team took position beyond the north tree line before midnight, close enough to monitor the live camera feed without being seen. Laura prepared duplicate evidence binders. I replaced the damaged warning sign and mounted a numbered seal across the monitoring corridor. We did not block the road. We did not touch her equipment. We waited. On the night before the ceremony, crews erected white tents beside the shoreline. Portable lights turned the trees silver. A forklift beeped in reverse while workers rolled artificial grass across the mud. From my porch, I watched Vanessa supervise the stage beneath a banner that read, Silver Pines Private Lake Grand Opening. My phone showed every camera online. Every witness had confirmed. Every document was indexed. The event was ready. So were we. At 4:13 the next morning, the gate alarm pulled me out of a shallow sleep. By the time I reached the kitchen, Vanessa was already on the camera feed. She stood beside the lake gate in a white jacket, one hand raised against the sparks. A contractor drove a grinder through the numbered seal while a flatbed idled behind them. Diesel smoke rolled beneath the pines. The excavator chained to the trailer rocked each time the engine surged. Daniel had warned me not to confront her alone. I did not. I called the federal investigator's number, put the phone on speaker, and clipped a body camera to my coat. Then I walked down the access road. Wet gravel shifted under my boots. The grinder stopped as I came around the bend. The cut chain dropped between us with a dull metallic slap. Vanessa smiled. You finally decided to cooperate. This corridor is closed to construction equipment, I said clearly. You have been notified in writing. You are being recorded. One contractor looked toward the camera mounted above the post. Vanessa did not. The county gave us access. Not to the monitoring corridor. Behind her, Howard's replacement as treasurer, Brent Lawson, climbed from the flatbed. He carried a pistol low against his thigh. My steps stopped. The lake moved quietly beyond the trees, but beneath it I could hear the harder rush of water through the spillway pipe. Overnight rain had raised the level. The excavator was aimed directly toward the buried control line and the manual release housing. If its tracks crossed the concrete apron, it could crush the conduit feeding the gauges and jam the service hatch. I backed 2 steps, keeping my hands visible. Brent, I said, you are armed, and this is being recorded. Put the gun down. He lifted it. Not at my chest. At the warning light above the gate. The shot cracked through the trees. Glass exploded. Birds burst from the shoreline. The empty casing struck the gravel beside the numbered seal the contractor had just cut. For 1 second, nobody moved. Then the excavator driver tried to climb into his cab. I pointed toward the corridor. If that machine crosses the yellow markers, you may damage an active water control system. Dispatch, did you hear that? A woman's voice answered through my phone. Confirmed. Vanessa's face changed. Only slightly. She stepped closer and lowered her voice. You think a few cameras make you powerful? No, I said. They make you accurate. Brent's hand tightened around the pistol. Vanessa looked at him. Put it away. Too late. Headlights flashed through the north tree line. Donovan's team had been monitoring the live feed from that position since before midnight. Two black SUVs rolled forward, followed by a county cruiser. Tires hissed over wet stone. Doors opened almost together. "Federal investigators," someone shouted. Weapon on the ground. Brent froze, then let the pistol fall. It hit the gravel beside the brass casing. Agents moved in fast. One secured Brent. Another photographed the cut seal, the grinder, the chain, and the fallen warning sign. Deputy Mercer separated the workers and began taking names. Vanessa kept talking. "This is a misunderstanding. We have a public event in 3 hours." Agent Donovan held up a sealed evidence bag containing the casing. "You also have an active investigation." Vanessa was questioned beside her Lexus while the excavator remained on the trailer. Brent was taken away in handcuffs. The grinder, casing, cut seal, and gate footage were secured as evidence. The lakeside corridor was closed as an active scene. Vanessa was released pending further action, pale but still defiant. "The presentation is proceeding," she told the remaining board members. "Nothing changes." Daniel arrived as the sun broke through the clouds. Across the road, workers were preparing the Silver Pines Clubhouse for the indoor sales presentation scheduled that morning. Reporters, buyers, county officials, and board members were already gathering there. "We can ask the county to cancel it," I said. Daniel looked toward the clubhouse doors. "No, the public is safe there, and every witness is already in one room." The lake remained sealed under federal supervision. The ceremony moved indoors, and we let Vanessa take the stage. By 9 o'clock, the Silver Pines Clubhouse looked like it had already won. White floral arrangements framed a raised stage beneath a cedar arch wrapped in blue ribbon. A string quartet played near the glass doors overlooking the sealed lake. Servers moved between tables carrying champagne in narrow glasses, while a promotional video showed drone footage of the proposed marina reflected in the water. Vanessa stood on the stage in a cream suit with gold buttons, one hand resting on an oversized pair of ceremonial scissors. Behind her, a scale model showed luxury homes facing a marina that did not exist. She looked untouched by the morning. I stayed near the back beside Laura and Daniel. My boots were still damp from the gate. I carried one thin folder. Vanessa raised her glass. "Today," she said, "Silver Pines finally claims the waterfront future it deserves." Cameras clicked. Before she could cut the ribbon, County Administrator Mills stepped onto the platform. He carried a red document pouch. "This ceremony is suspended," he said. The music stopped unevenly. One violin held a note too long. Mills posted an emergency administrative order on the podium. It froze all shoreline permits, prohibited construction traffic, and revoked the temporary access ruling pending review of material misrepresentations. Vanessa laughed once. "This is Ethan Cole's harassment campaign." My surveyor, Mark Ellison, entered through the rear doors carrying a sealed equipment case. He connected his field data to the event screen and projected the certified boundary map behind Vanessa. Yellow lines crossed the proposed marina, the access road, and every planned structure shown in her presentation. "The dock site, access road, and control corridor are outside Silver Pines property," he said. Every construction marker was placed on the Cole parcel. The crowd shifted. Vanessa pointed at her binder. "We have recorded rights." Laura walked forward carrying the wax-wrapped file from beneath the monitoring shed. Daniel placed the original authorization beneath a document camera. The federal seal appeared 10 feet high behind Vanessa. The agreement granted ownership of the lake, dam road, and monitoring corridor to my family. The only easement allowed inspection and emergency maintenance by authorized agencies. No boating, no marina, no HOA access. Daniel displayed Vanessa's version beside it. One altered digit, one forged signature, one drainage parcel substituted for the lake. Vanessa's face hardened. These documents were hidden. We relied on counsel. A bank compliance officer rose from the second row. "So did we," she said. She held up Vanessa's signed ownership declaration, the one sent to my bank to freeze my credit line. An insurance investigator followed with the matching statement submitted for waterfront liability coverage. Both claimed there was no boundary dispute and no federal equipment on site. The bank officer closed her folder. "Those representations triggered a fraud referral this morning." A live camera feed replaced the boundary map on the clubhouse screen. At the lake, a low warning tone sounded from the temporary pump controls. Not danger. Procedure. Agent Donovan stood beside the control cabinet with 2 water resource technicians. Under their supervision, I inserted the brass in-4 key into the manual panel. The old relays clicked. The unauthorized event pumps powered down one by one. Decorative fountains collapsed into ripples. Temporary dock lights went dark. No homes lost water. The spillway remained fully operational. Only the equipment installed without permission stopped. Vanessa stepped off the stage and came toward me. You sabotaged this. I shut down equipment installed on my land under agency supervision. She turned toward the cameras. He planned this. Howard helped him. Howard Bell stood from behind the reporters. Yes, he said. I helped preserve the records. He handed Agent Donovan the flash drive. The event screen filled with Vanessa's emails. Use the drainage parcel number. Find the original file before Cole does. County staff won't check until after opening. Vanessa looked at the HOA attorney. He looked away. Agent Donovan then played the gate footage, the cut-numbered seal, the fallen warning sign, Vanessa directing the excavator forward, and Brent firing at the security light. The brass casing appeared in a sealed evidence bag. Vanessa's last denial died before she spoke it. 2 agents stepped beside her. Vanessa Whitmore was arrested on federal warrants tied to false statements, document fraud, and conspiracy. The infrastructure, insurance, and evidence tampering allegations would be handled as the investigation continued. The county revoked the event permit. HOA council invoked the board's emergency suspension clause, removed Vanessa from operational control, and scheduled a supervised board vote for that evening. Behind them, the giant model of Silver Pines still showed rows of expensive homes facing my water. That was the truth she could never cut through. Every promise she had sold depended on a lake she had never owned. 11 months later, the lake was quiet again. Morning fog rested above the water, thin and silver. The repaired gate swung without scraping, and the new security light cast a steady circle across the gravel. Near the spillway, the monitoring gauges clicked at regular intervals while water moved through the buried pipe with a deep, controlled hum. No excavators. No unauthorized docks. No engines idling beneath the pines. The bank restored the repair credit line secured by the lake parcel after completing its fraud review. With the funds released, we replaced the cracked drainage line before the next storm season. Federal technicians repaired and recalibrated the USGS flood monitoring equipment, and Mark's survey crew installed permanent boundary markers that could not be mistaken for decoration. I did not close the lake out of spite. Silver Pines still had families who had purchased homes believing Vanessa's promises. They had children, mortgages, and no part in her decisions. So I offered the Reform Board a legal agreement. Supervised shoreline access twice each month, no motorized boats, no construction, and no entry into the dam road or monitoring corridor. The board accepted. Every resident signed the same rules. No private favors. No invented authority. Vanessa eventually pleaded guilty to federal false statement, document fraud, and conspiracy charges. The court ordered restitution to affected buyers and financial institutions. The state revoked her real estate license, and the settlement permanently barred her from serving on or managing a homeowners association. Brent Lawson received probation after surrendering the weapon and cooperating with investigators. The shot had missed every person, but the casing, the camera footage, and the damaged light left him nothing credible to deny. The contractor who cut the seal paid for the gate repairs, lost his county operating permit, and was barred from bidding on public work during his probation. Howard testified and was not charged. Silver Pines replaced the entire board through a supervised election. Residents filled the meeting room instead of watching decisions happen behind closed doors. An independent audit uncovered payments for the forged maps, the nighttime searches, and Vanessa's private legal expenses. The money was recovered where possible, and every future contract became available for residents to inspect. One evening, Laura and I returned to my father's shed. The smell of cedar dust and machine oil still lived in the walls. On the workbench, I arranged the 8 broken locks in a straight line. Beside them, I placed the flattened warning sign, the one the truck had driven over before the federal case began. The bullet-damaged security housing hung above it. Laura handed me the brass in-4 key. I did not return it to the hidden control room. I framed it beside the old photograph of my father and grandfather at the unfinished spillway. Under the glass, I added a copy of the original authorization, its federal seal dark and clear. Outside, the gate closed with one clean metallic click. The water kept moving. The families kept coming, now by permission instead of threat. Vanessa thought power meant cutting through whatever stood in her way. She was wrong. Justice was never the loudest sound at the lake. It was smart. It was patient. And it was inevitable.